everyone, and welcome to today's episode. We're going to be talking about First Love, Second Draft by Becca Kinzer. So, this one is a contemporary romance and it's a rom com and it's set in a small town in Illinois. So, it fits within the Christian fiction genre and it's a standalone story. So, why did I want to read this one? Well, I really enjoyed reading Dear Henry, Love Edith and Love in Tandem, which are the two books that Becca had published before this one. So I was very anxious to get my hands on this one and read it because I really love those books. And the book recommendations for those ones are actually on my blog, which you can find at narelleatkins.com. And the link will be in the show notes. So I read an advanced reader copy, and so many thanks to the publisher for providing me with the ARC. And I'll add my usual disclaimer that all the opinions that I express in this episode are completely my own. So let's talk about the book. First Love, Second Draft by Becca Kinzer is set in a small town in Illinois. And I think it's in the southwestern part of Illinois because St. Louis is not that far away, I've worked out in the story. So this one has quite a number of romance and rom-com tropes. We have second chances and a reunion romance because our hero and heroine are divorced and were formerly married for a very long time. So it's a reuniting of the married couple, the formerly married couple. We also have a hero who is a professional baseball player. He's a pitcher for the Seattle Mariners, which I'll get to a bit later. We have a very bookish heroine. She's a romance author and had a very successful series of baseball sports romances. And we also have forced proximity in terms of how the story plays out. And this one is a double romance. So I love the double romance. And what I mean by that is we have the main romance, plus there's also a really fun and cute romantic subplot in the story as well. So let's look at what the first line is for this one. And it's quite a long first line as well. Gracie loved Mona with every beat of her heart, but the occasional moment arose when she wanted nothing more than to smack her beloved sister in the face with a Bavarian cream pie. So that's that's a very big opening line. And it really does demonstrate how close these sisters are. So Mona is Gracie's older sister. So Gracie is our leading lady in the story. And the setup for this is that she's just picked her up from the hospital and Gracie's having trouble moving and is getting frustrated with Mona. But anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. So let's talk about Gracie. So she's in her early 40s, 41 or 42 roundabouts. And she's a romance author whose last book didn't do very well. And she's now on a very tight deadline. And she needs this book to do well to save her career. And at the start of the story, she's been involved in, how can I put it? A very unusual and unique riding accident. And as you keep reading, you'll understand why it's very unusual and unique and rather hilarious, except for the fact that she gets very injured and has a hairline fracture in her pelvis. And as a result of this accident, she has trouble standing up and sitting down and has mobility issues and issues in walking. So she was in the hospital and she needs to do rehab, but she refused to do rehab within the hospital system because she has this tight deadline and wants to get home. So Mona has just brought her home from the hospital, but Mona's a very busy realtor. She's on the phone with phone calls for clients and this and that, and that's frustrating Gracie a bit as well. So we have Gracie living on 5 acres in Illinois outside of town, and she's living in the house where she has really fond memories of her former husband, and they had many happy years living in this house. And so she has to get this book done. Her agent is really, really worried that she's going to miss the deadline. She's going to deliver a product that is not going to meet the expectations of a zingy romance, which is what the publisher wants, and that this really is going to kill Gracie's career. So she's got a lot of financial pressure on her. She's got a lot of pressure to keep her writing career going in the traditional publishing world. And she's also in a lot of pain from having this hairline fracture in her pelvis. So she's got a lot going on at the moment. So she's pretty much on the edge of flying off the handle at anyone because of all these things that have coming together. And so, to help her out financially, Gracie's nephew has organised a tenant to come and stay in the cottage she renovated on her 5 acres. It's just next door to the main house. And what she finds out is this mysterious tenant happens to be Noah, who is her ex husband, who they split up 5 years earlier. So let's talk about Noah. He's our hero in the story. So he's a pitcher and he's a pro baseballer and he plays for the Seattle Mariners. And I really like that connection because I've actually been in Seattle and watched the Seattle Mariners play. So that was really cool to have something in an American story that the Aussie can relate to and having actually been there and experienced a baseball game because I do love watching baseball. And what's happened is that he's 40 and he's in the twilight of his baseball playing career, being because of his age. And he's also got a niggling shoulder injury that means his pitching hasn't been as good as it would normally be. And so he's been dropped for the postseason match. So he's feeling pretty despondent about his career ending. And so when he receives this phone call from Gracie's nephew about coming and staying in the cottage and finds out that Gracie's been injured and needs help, then he leaps at the chance to come and see Gracie and try and win her back because Gracie was the one who kicked him out. And he's never gotten over Gracie. He still loves her and he wants to reunite with her and see if it's possible for them to restore their marriage. So that's his reason for coming back to Illinois. And so the plan is for him to live in the cottage. And he also has his agent who wants him to write his memoir. So part of the transition to retirement from being a sports person is that he can make money off publishing his memoir while fans still remember who he is, et cetera, et cetera. But Noah has some reluctance to do that because he had some childhood trauma and he really didn't have an easy family of origin situation. And he's not really keen to dig back into all that history. And so he's quite reluctant to look at the memoir idea, even though his agent is pushing it. So the meet cute between Gracie and Noah is just adorable. It's so awkward and it's so cute and it's really embarrassing for Gracie on so many levels, but I just loved it. And it really set up the relationship dynamics between them for the rest of the book because she's very stubborn and she's trying to be independent despite the fact she can't get around easily. And it was quite hilarious to read her failures at being independent in terms of her mobility and stuff like that. It was really cute to read. And so, as you probably guessed, there are a lot of problems that the characters need to overcome in the story. So we have Gracie, who's stubborn and just doesn't want anyone really to help her. And she definitely doesn't want Noah, her ex-husband, to help her because as far as she's concerned, their marriage is over. It was over 5 years ago, and she's really been trying to move on and get on with her life. And her novel is just a hot mess. There's so many problems with what's going on with the story that are rather hilarious. And she has this looming deadline that won't go away, and an agent who's like, I read the draft and it's not working. You need to fix it. So her author career and everything is on the line, and she really needs this novel to be successful. So we have the big problem, obviously, being Gracie and Noah's broken marriage and what went wrong with their relationship and why they're no longer together. And his baseball career and spending so much time apart didn't help. But there were also a lot of issues related to infertility that they had to navigate as well in their marriage. And there's a whole lot of things that led to their marriage breaking down. And in the story, we go through the healing process of that, which was just beautiful to watch. And I really enjoyed it. So, this one I describe as having relevant faith elements. We have redemption and forgiveness themes. We have Gracie, who really turned away from God when her marriage was breaking down, and she really felt that God wasn't there for her in a lot of ways. And we also have both Gracie and Noah dealing with grief and loss in different ways and really not being on the same page and not really understanding that back then that they were both going through that but didn't quite realize where the other person was as well. And that will all come out in the story as well. So why did I love this book? Well, it was a laugh out loud funny rom-com and I was laughing out loud. When you have a couple who are formerly married, there are some different layers of humor that can be added into the story because they know each other and they used to live together and they're familiar with each other, et cetera, et cetera. There's places that the author can go with that and work with that that are just so fun. And Becca just did a lovely job in creating this really hilarious relationship dynamic between Noah and Gracie as they journey on their path to working out whether they can reconcile. And we also have some really quirky side characters. Mona and Gracie's relationship is really interesting, and it was interesting to see how that played out. We also have Gracie's dad in the story. He's in a care facility and he's very unwell. We have her nephew as well. We have a lovely romantic subplot that's rolling along in the story, which gives us some light relief as well. It's a very cute subplot. And there's just, and that where the subplot has unrequited love and it's friends to more. And there's just so much to love about this book. So, my favorite book quote is this one. Guess it just made me realize that by ignoring all the bad parts in my past, I'd swept out some good parts too. And this is Noah talking and thinking about how he could possibly dig into his family of origin and what happened during his childhood to actually write his memoir and whether he can go there with a whole lot of stuff that's happened. And both he and Gracie had so much emotional baggage to deal with. Gracie lost her mum when she was very young, so Mona was really a mother figure to her, which you can really tell from the first line that they have a different dynamic to the usual sister siblings as well. And their marriage, the way their marriage panned out and the way they split and all the rest of it, and particularly being public because he was a well known sports person and the distance because he was always on the road traveling to games and the baseball season doesn't stop, it just keeps rolling around and around. So there was a lot of emotional baggage that needed to get sorted out and a lot of healing in relationships and forgiveness that needed to be looked at as well. And I will add that I would put some trigger warnings on this one. If you're struggling with infertility or if that's a sensitive issue to you, then you may want to consider whether or not this is the book for you, because there potentially are some aspects of the story that might be hard to read. It also includes grief and loss. And if you're really struggling with grief and loss at the moment, this might be one to read a bit later. So it's a rom-com that has depth. So even though we have so much light-hearted, funny, cute stuff going on this story, there's also those deeper layers. And healing a marriage is a deep story. It's not a light read. And so you've got the light and shade in the story as well. So, in summary, I would recommend First Love, Second Draft to readers who like rom coms that have depth and really do go deep into the characters' relationships and their childhood and their backstory and really look at some very serious issues. If you like second chances and healing marriages, you'll like this one. If you're into sports romances, you'll like the baseball aspects of the story. It's not a major part of the story. So if you hate sports romance, don't not read this one because there really isn't a lot of sport in it. There's a little bit, but nothing that would turn you off if you really don't like sports. And we have a bookish character with an author in the story, and we get to see her author journey, which is rather hilarious. What's going on behind the scenes. Although it's very serious and dire, there are some very light-hearted moments with it. If you like charming small towns with a quirky cast of characters that really add to the humor in the story, you'll like this one. And if you're like me and like the double romance with the main romance story, plus the romantic subplot that's very satisfying, then you'll love this one as well. Thanks for joining me today. Does First Love, Second Draft sound like a book that you'd like to read? Or have you already read it? What did you think? You can let me know. If you're listening on the podcast, you can send me a text via a link in the show notes. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the episode or leave a comment at YouTube. You can also email me via my website, which has a contact form, and that's at narelleatkins.com. And please subscribe at your favorite podcasting app or at YouTube if you've enjoyed this episode. And that means that you won't miss another episode when they come along because you'll get a notification. And if you have enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend who likes reading Christian rom-coms and who you think would like reading Becca Kinzer's books. All the links that I've mentioned will be in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in and see you next time.